Hi and welcome to TMG Movie Reviews. I'm Rick.
I'm Andrew.
And today we're going to be reviewing Hudson Hawk.
From 1991, directed by Michael Lehman with Bruce Willis as Eddie Hudson Hawk Hawkins. It also stars Danny Aiello, Sandra Bernhard and Richard E. Grant. Now this film, Hudson Hawk, was a bit of a pet project for Bruce. At the time he came up with the idea, he was still working as a bartender, I believe, in New York, and he conceived the idea for the film with his friend Robert Kraft, so they both get a story credit. And the idea was really, there was one based on, there was a myth about the Hudson River, and there's a line in the film about the cold wind that blows in the winter. So by the time the film came out in 91, Bruce was already a huge star. He'd had moonlighting on television, and he'd had Die Hard 2, which had been enormous, and he'd also had Die Hard 1, Look Who's Talking. So he was in that position where, when you're an actor and you've had a number of successes, you can basically get anything you want greenlit. So they hired Lehman, who had done Heathers, I believe, who, if you haven't seen Heathers, ask your older sister, she'll know about it. He also had done Meet the Applegate, so this was also a big film for him. This was going to be the film that really shot him into the A-list. He also had Joel Silver on board as a producer, and what happened was a nightmare of epic proportions. The budget was initially $40 million, but because they were shooting on location here in Rome, and the Italian crews, according to Bruce, won't work overtime because they have to go home, they have to eat some pasta, they have to make love to their wives. I don't know how true that is, but they wouldn't do overtime, so they couldn't carry on shooting late into the night, so that didn't help. There was also problems with the weather, with the locations, and there was a great deal of arguments between Lehman, the director, Bruce, and Joel Silver, because I think the film that they all wanted to make, they all had different ideas, and putting those ideas into the same pot didn't quite work. And then eventually, when the film came out, it was savaged by critics, absolutely derided. It won a number of Raspberry Awards. I don't know if you're familiar, they're the anti-Oscars for films that are just an absolute disaster, and it limped out of the box office and limped onto video. But I have to say, I really do like the film, and I really want to give it a positive review, because I think there are a lot of people out there who are aware of the bad press and don't really know it as well as they should. So, but we'll see what Rick thinks. Rick, what did you think?
Well, going in and not knowing a lot of that information, I sort of went in just knowing it was a Bruce Willis movie and not really knowing what to expect from it. It looked like an action type movie. And as it started and as it sort of opened, the first, I'd say 15 or 20 minutes of the film, it comes across like this really sort of action type film. You see Bruce Willis come out of prison, you see him get sort of coerced into doing a job that he's quite reluctant to do. He doesn't really want to do it, and you just think it's a very sort of action storyline at the start of the film, and you just think this is where this story's heading, and then it just takes a complete sort of twist and goes more like a sort of, you get introduced to these villains named after chocolate bars like Kit Kat, and there's other ones as well.
Yeah, there's Kit Kat, there's Palm and Joy, and who else? There's Snickers, of course. Snickers. Played by David Caruso there. Yeah, I think that's probably why. What happened is at the time that this film came out, obviously Bruce had done Die Hard 2, and I love Die Hard 2, and Rick loves it too. And I think what happened was audiences went in, and critics, assuming this was a Joel Silver, Bruce Willis action film, and it's a film that really owes a great deal to a film called Our Man in Flint, which is from the 60s, which is sort of a spy, spoofy, James Bond type of film. And I think that's what they were aiming for, and I think the simple problem was when you've got Bruce Willis from Die Hard, you've got Joel Silver from Lethal Weapon, you're not going to get a straightforward action film, especially when you're throwing in moments like the Singing on a Star scene, where you've got Bruce and Danny Aiello singing Swinging on a Star while they rob a museum, and then you've got them singing side by side while they do significant damage to the Da Vinci castle, which I was quite surprised you could get away with that. And I think there's something a bit off-putting about that, about Danny running around spraying explosives around the place while he's singing all Bing Crosby tunes. I didn't quite agree with that.
I liked the music as a form of timing, because it is a comedy, it's an action comedy, and it's just, obviously, if you've got a clock there, it makes everything tense, it makes everything sort of more action-filled, but because it's the comedy, and I really like the fact that they timed everything just by songs. I mean, yeah. I just thought it was a nice twist, and I thought it was a good way to play it. But the thing that, once you get into that sort of dream sort of cartoon-like area of the film,
it's a bit surreal towards the end. Yeah,
but it starts, once you sort of say like, right, it's not an action film, this is the sort of film it is, that's just how it opened. it's led you into this sort of cartoony, sort of dreamlike movie, and when you accept it for that, I still think it's really good. I think Bruce Willis's character really helps keep it grounded as the lead. So even though all this weird stuff is happening, you've got Bruce Willis to sort of keep you sort of interested in it. I think Andy McDowell's character, I thought she was actually really good. I thought, like, because usually you see her in these romantic comedies and she always plays this same sort of role, like the Four Weddings and a Funeral role.
Yeah.
And you see her in this, and she just goes all out for the comedy, and she just doesn't hold back at all. And I think it's really good. I think she's definitely like one of the highlights of the movie.
Yeah, it wasn't originally going to be. It was going to be a lady called Marushka Detmers, who was cast in Andy McDowell's role. She had a back injury, so she dropped out. Even at one point wanted Madonna to do it, but Andy McDowell's terrific, and I knew her films. I mean, she's in Green Card and she's in Sex, Lies and Videotapes, and that is right, she plays sort of a bit of a waif, not terribly a great deal going on upstairs, but here, yeah, she's great. You know, I love the moment at the end where she's doing the little dolphin sounds. What's the sound the dolphin makes?
Oh yeah,
knows.
Yeah.
It's great, and then she's pulling guns, and it's a great sort of action, sort of comedy heroine role, and I think it's a shame that more people didn't sort of recognise that about the performance when it came out, because the funny thing is, none of the people, with the exception, I think, of Bruce Willis, have really gone on to having great careers after this film. It's kind of stalled a lot of people. Michael Lehman, who directed it, hasn't done many other films. He mainly directs that vampire show, True Blood, now. The guy who co-wrote it, who'd also written Heathers, he wrote Batman Returns, which we'll talk about later on, but he didn't really go on so much. So it kind of ruined a few careers, which I think is a bit of a shame. And I know Joel Silver's obviously gone on to produce things like The Matrix, but in terms of the creative team, with the exception of Bruce Willis, it's a shame that it's a film that's not more recognised for what it is, and it's a shame that it's stalled a lot of careers.
Yeah. So what would your rating out of 5 be?
I'd give it a 4 because I think it's a really unusual, really funny film, and just like Rick said, it's a great action comedy. You've got Bruce Willis doing what he does best, which is the wisecracks, and the charming sort of, little moments, and there's some great funny scenes. There's a great scene with the Pope, and the Pope's watching, I think it's Muffin the Mule, and the two in Italian, and he bangs his Pope stick while Bruce is on his roof. And the one thing I didn't get though, actually, maybe you got this, do you remember Pokey, the pink elephant?
From the movie?
Yeah, the little girl's bashing the pink elephant on the stairs, and then Bruce wants to activate the security system, so he flings the elephant in, and it brings the massive security system down.
Oh yeah,
Codex book.
I do actually.
Don't get quite why that scene is there. I mean, I understand they needed to show how the security system works, but they could have just booted somebody into it or something like that. I don't get why the little girl's smashing up the teddy bear and then kicks it into the...
But she was a bit of a brat, and you sort of cheered when Bruce Willis did that to her.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit of a comic Bruce moment. But yeah, I thought there could have been another way that you could have segued into that. But yeah, but on the whole, yeah, I'd recommend it. If you haven't seen it, I've got it on DVD. I bought it actually so I could hear Michael Lehman's commentary. So I definitely recommend you can watch it on TV. There is also, I don't know if you've heard this, a brilliant book by the guy who played Darwin Mayflower, Richard E. Grant, called With the Nails, and he writes diaries of each of the films he worked on, and he wrote a brilliant piece about Hudson Hawk, about everything that went wrong, about the location arguments, about the money problems, about Joel Silver's temper tantrums. It's brilliant. If you can find it, you can find it on Amazon. It's definitely worth a read.
Right. For me, I'd give it a 3. Like I said, it starts off as something completely different as what it ends up being, but once you sort of accept that and just sort of enjoy the rest of the ride, I do think it picks up again, and like it's quite entertaining. Like I said, Andy McDowell's a real highlight of the comedy. So yeah, I think that's all there is to say for this one.
So yes, that was Hudson Hawk, so I hope you enjoyed it, and tune in for our next review, which should be Batman Returns. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, bye.